Hi, Bhante. How are you? I hope you're well.
I'm doing well. Yes, thank you.
Good. Good to see you. Hi, Prashant. He's fiddling with something.
How are you doing?
I'm well, Prashant. How are you?
I'm all right. Yeah.
You look well.
Thank you. A long time we see Shobhaji also today.
Yes. I mean, it's been over 2 years, of course. We haven't seen each other with the COVID and I guess other items that, interfere. But at least I get to see you on Zoom, get to chat sometimes. That's good.
You're connected this way for sure.
Yes. Yes.
Namaskar, Shobhaji. Welcome back after a long time.
You're muted, Shobha, if you're trying to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I said I was out of town for a few days and so I missed a few sessions. How are you, Bhante?
I'm doing well, thank you.
You had a good visit in California?
Yes, very nice.
Yeah. Were you there for a retreat, Bhante, or
I
with your family?
did do two Dhamma programs, a 2-day weekend retreat in Ventura and a day-long DOM in Covina
Okay.
at a Sri Lankan temple.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. They must be all very happy to see you back.
I guess. In fact, one of them had just arrived today. She flew out here to stay here for 3 weeks, just arriving actually just an hour ago.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Great.
We were all able to re-listen or watch the previous those videos that I sent out. Links to those videos I sent out.
Yeah. I was able to watch them both.
Dealing with the hindrances and the wisdom, mindfulness, and concentration.
I was able to get through first one, Bhante.
So,
I heard Michael went through both of
any
them.
questions on those that come up, you could write them down in the chat box for our discussion.
I was able to watch both of them. You referred to a text in the second one on hindrances.
Yeah.
I know that you gave us that link or you sent out a PDF or Prashant sent it out some time ago. But I couldn't remember exactly what it was. But I remember reading it or reading parts of it.
If you just Google in the Five Hindrances, probably that book will come up as one of a few different. It's called the Five Hindrances and Their Conquest by Jnana Ponika Thera. It's one of the best books that cover the five hindrances and all the different aspects about how they arise and how you deal with them and so on. With Prashant, you have that link too, probably, right?
Yes, I'm just posting it right now. Yes.
Okay, so Prashant's going to post that link for those who had lost it.
Bhante, I tuned in a little late to hear, where was it that you did Dhamma talks in California?
In Ventura at a new temple from a Sri Lankan monk friend of mine, and in Covina. which is near Pomona, California, for those
Did you
who are familiar with California.
did you stay at a temple?
Yes, I stayed. I also visited my brother, and I visited a couple of other Dharma centers as well.
Great.
And I even went sailing on the Pacific Ocean with some old friends
That's great.
in the
I was
sailboat.
going to ask if you went surfing.
Not surfing, sailing.
I'm teasing. I got it.
I didn't do the sailing, they did. I just enjoyed the views.
That's wonderful.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start now with reciting the Namo Tassa and the three refuges for those who like to join. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, dhammang saranang gacchami, sanghang saranang gacchami, dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. So good evening, friends. Welcome to this Wednesday night Dhamma discussion. So tonight we are having the discussion or the questions and answers session, Dhamma discussion on the two links to two previous talks I had given on wisdom, mindfulness, and concentration, sometimes usually said as mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom, and the five hindrances, because these two groups are connected. And I've given these talks previously, in the first year back in I think it was June of 2020. So I hope that many of you were able to re-listen to those. But I'm going to give a brief kind of summary of them for those who may not have been able to listen to them. And then hope that you have some questions based on that. There was only one question that's sent in to me, and there may be some in the chat. So as we go along, you can write any questions that you might have in the chat box for when I finish my summary. So as we all know, the teachings of the Buddha are focused around the nature of suffering, the cause of suffering, that suffering can be brought to an end, and then the way to live, think, and meditate that will help us to unravel all the complicated, thorny knots of karma and their interconnections that are deep within our unconscious mind, both in the conscious mind and in the unconscious mind. So, in the practice of meditation, as we know, is one of the main tools that we use to help unravel this process of the mind and to gain liberation from the traps, the self-created traps that we've been trapping ourselves in, for many lifetimes, or at least, in this lifetime itself. We've done a lot of that in our earlier years. So, the three main processes of meditation are developing mindfulness. Through the practice of mindfulness, you gain concentration. And through the balance and integration of mindfulness and concentration, you develop the deeper insights and wisdom that lead to being able to actually free our mind from all of the defilements. Now, it's the five hindrances that are the main blockages to our ability to develop our meditation practice. And that's why the five hindrances are considered something that people should be aware of and to deal with them. So in that one booklet that we were talking about, that link to this book that I've covered in the past, but that link to that book, Prashant will probably be putting that up on the chat, if not already. But so these five hindrances, just as a brief review, because I'm sure most of you know about them, are sense desire, and this means attachment to wanting things through our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and even our thoughts. So the desires and so on that we have in our mind. And most of those desires are based on desires to see pleasurable things, to hear pleasurable things, to smell and taste pleasurable things, and to feel pleasurable things. So a lot of our thoughts are connected with these desires. So it's called the sensual desires that even in meditation, it comes up. The urges and desires for this or that. And then also the opposites of that was the aversions and resentments. And usually it's directed towards people and situations, having ill will towards others for what they might have done to us in the past or even in the present, and dredging up these old memories and resentments. So these two, sense desire and ill will, these are basically the thoughts that come up to us while we meditate. And of course, they operate in our daily lives as well. And it's because we have these desires and aversions in our daily life that, every time we exercise desires and aversions in our daily life, it goes down into our unconscious mind and strengthens them. And so they will come up over and over again, even when we don't want them to, when we meditate, because they're down in our unconscious mind. So, and then there's restlessness and worry. And this means just not being satisfied, not being contented. So we're restless. We get bored very easily. And whereas, we start to meditate and we're thinking, when's this going to be over? What time is it? Or, you have to do various things, or you're worrying about things. This can also be, fear is also can be connected to worrying. But basically it's worrying about things that you had done that you shouldn't have done, or things you didn't do that you should have done. So, these things come up in our meditation. Oh, I should have done that, or I shouldn't have done that. And this adds to a lot of the just restlessness, but it's basically not being contented. And then there's sloth and torpor, which is basically mental and physical lethargy, or just the laziness. But actually, it's, when you start to meditate, and the head starts, you get a little bit drowsy, and even though you might have gotten a good night's sleep, still at any time during meditation, the mind can get a little bit drowsy, and the head goes down, and you come back up, and that can occur many times in one meditation session. Or just a mental lethargy too, the mind just being very dull and not being clear. So this is a hindrance for our meditation. In fact, sleepiness is one of the worst hindrances of all these five. Now the fifth one is doubts. And usually it's doubts about, whether this meditation is something you can really do, or doubts whether the Dhamma is really the true teaching, or of all this practice that we're doing is actually going to lead to any effects, or doubting in yourself, oh, I'll never be able to do this. Oh, my mind's too full of thoughts. I'll never be able to develop concentration. And so many kind of doubts like that. Or it could be doubts about some of the doctrines that you hear, like doubting about whether karma is really real, or rebirth is real, and various things we read about, in the teachings. So anyway, these five hindrances, again, just sense desire, ill will, restlessness and worry, sloth and torpor, and doubts. Now, in that booklet, the Five Hindrances and their Conquest gives all the different causes and conditions that nurture these hindrances, and ways that we can cultivate the antidotes to them, and how to live and think and meditate that will be able to weaken these hindrances. But because we accumulate the causes and conditions for these hindrances in our daily life, and that is why they come up in our meditation. So that's why much of the Eightfold Path, the other aspects of the Buddha's teaching, that means right understanding, right speech, observing sila, and so on. These are also ways of helping to cultivate the harmonious environment in which we live, and to weaken the additional accumulation of these hindrances. And then little by little, they can be overcome. But they're really the main reason why we have difficulty meditating. And so having just given that little outline of the five hindrances, I'm going to talk now about the process of meditation, which is, I like to explain them in the order of wisdom, mindfulness, and concentration, because wisdom has three levels. So the first level is intellectual understanding, that I've given many times on the talks before. And so it's basically, hearing Dhamma talks like this and other Dhamma talks, or reading books about the Buddha's teaching, about the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, about, the meditation and so on. You get some about karma and so on. You get an intellectual understanding about the mind. And, even just reading about, the five aggregates and the six senses, and how our mind gets tied up in the web of cause and effect, and creating karma around our desires and aversions for these six senses, that we gain some intellectual understanding about it, and seeing how that's essentially the source of most of our suffering and confusion in the life, is the result of our karmic actions. So that intellectual understanding, when people haven't heard about the Dhamma before, it pricks their interest. They get interested. Oh, that sounds interesting, and they want to check it out. And then they hear about meditation. Now meditation is becoming very popular in the West, so people are trying meditation. So anyway, that intellectual understanding, that initial intellectual understanding is also a level of wisdom, a part of right understanding, because before we heard the Dhamma, most of us didn't know much about that, because it's not talked too much about that in ordinary aspects of life, especially this Western living and so on. So that intellectual understanding, it gets you to start to want to practice meditation. So you starting to practice mindfulness. And then, because mindfulness is really the first step, we have to be mindful of the hindrances in order to note them in our meditation. When we're meditating, a lot of people just try to concentrate their mind only. But if they're not aware when the hindrances arise, because they arise so craftily and cleverly that we get caught up and lost to them before we've kind of seen them. And then it's harder to let them go. So the mindfulness is sort of like the watch to recognize, okay, sense desire is arising now, or ill will is arising now. When you notice the head starting to go down, sleepiness is arising now. Or you start worrying too much about things, worry is arising now. So you have to note them so you can try to just observe them and then apply the appropriate antidotes, or at least to try to let go of them and keep coming back to your object of concentration. So we have an object of concentration, such as the breathing or the body, but the mindfulness has to be there at the same time, the mindfulness of, so we try to concentrate on the breathing or the postures, but at the same time we have to be mindful. Otherwise we'll get carried away in the hindrance, and that concentration won't develop. So the mindfulness, the ability to notice the hindrances is important, because the quicker you notice a hindrance, the easier it is to let go of it, or to overcome its hold on the mind by applying the appropriate antidote. Such as if you notice yourself kind of drowsy and drowsing out and kind of half asleep, you have to recognize that, and you have to apply the antidote. What is the antidote? Is straighten up, and lift the head up, keep the chin level to the ground. Maybe take a few deep breaths to oxygenate the blood. That is the antidote. But a lot of people just sit there for, the whole meditation period, just, in a kind of a half awake state. They think they're meditating, but it's a very low level of meditation. Because meditation happens, as I've said many times over again, happens between the brain and the spinal column, and that's how you become alert, by sitting straight. So it's impossible to really go to sleep or get drowsy when you're really sitting perfectly straight. So anyway, that's just one example of how you have to be mindful to apply the antidote. Or any of the other hindrances. Such as if you keep on thinking ill will toward a certain person that did something to you, you have to be mindful of that and apply the appropriate antidote. Maybe like, say, wishing, well, okay, this person did this to me, but maybe they got up on the wrong side of the bed, and they're also suffering, so cut them some slack, so may they be well and happy. At least maybe that'll help you to let go of that recurring aversion to them. And so that you can come back and then keep focused on the breathing or the posture, the flow of the present moment without getting carried away. So that's how the mindfulness and the concentration, you by being mindful and by letting go of the hindrances quicker and quicker and quicker, that way the mind stays longer and longer on the subject of meditation. And that's how you gain the concentration. And when you gain the concentration, that also makes the more you become concentrated, the more brighter and clearer the mindfulness becomes. And the brighter and clearer mindfulness becomes, you stay more concentrated. And as you're doing that, as you balance and integrate meditation and mindfulness and concentration, that's when you start getting insights. Because it's like turning up the power of a microscope. And you're starting, because of this concentrated state of mind and the bright awareness, and the hindrances being suppressed, that's when you start experiencing, altered states of consciousness, which is basically different degrees of concentration and awareness. And therefore that the wisdom gets stronger. So you go from just the first level of wisdom is the intellectual wisdom. It gets you starting to meditate. But as you begin to meditate and continue, then that intellectual wisdom turns into reflective wisdom. You start reflecting on the Dhamma, and you start getting these initial insights that help you to get more concentration. And then eventually, when that concentration gets strong enough, then you gain these what are called the deeper insights, which ultimately lead to realizing the path and fruits, and experiencing the letting go of the sense of self, and experiencing how the self is basically a kind of just an illusion, and you overcome that doubt that a lot of people doubts. One of those hindrances is a doubt about, does the self really exist? I mean, I think I have an I, or is it permanent? Am I going to is this going to be with me for eternity, and so on? So people might have these kind of doubts, and it can hold them back. So, but once you actually start to see how the self is an illusion through these deeper states of concentration, then your doubts about it are gradually overcome also. So anyway, this is how these three levels of mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom help to strengthen each other. And they're not disconnected from the other aspects of the Noble Eightfold Path, like, of course, practicing the Sila. And so, the Sila, Samadhi, and Panya is another way of breaking down the practice of the Dhamma. But specifically, we're talking about the hindrances and how they affect the practice of meditation. So that's why I'm focusing more or less on the wisdom, mindfulness, and concentration. So that's what is kind of just a brief summary. That's what I wanted to kind of just review. And this is what I had focused on in those two Dhamma talks in which I had sent out those links. Now, so now I'm going to look at some questions that may have come up. There was one question that was sent in to me, so I'm going to look at that one first. And so the rest of you out there, while we're doing this, you can write, if any questions about any of those things that I just mentioned come up, you can write them also down in the chat box. Or you could even raise your hand and ask a question. Okay, so this one question that was sent in is, where does fear fit in the five hindrances? So now fear is not specifically mentioned as one of those 5 hindrances. Now, also pain was not mentioned in one of the 5 as one of the 5 hindrances, but oftentimes when I'm talking about hindrances, I may mention the 3 main hindrances are, sleepiness and pain, and then just monkey mind or wandering thoughts. But all wandering thoughts fall into the category of sense desire, aversion, restlessness and worry, or doubts. So all the various thoughts we are going to have are going to fall into those 4 categories of those hindrances of the sense desire, aversion, restlessness, and worry, and doubts. But because pain is probably a bigger hindrance than, let's say, doubts for a lot of people, because, when the body has pains and, the mind gets distracted by it. And so for beginners, pain is one of the strongest hindrances too, pain and sleepiness. But sleepiness is the worst because it stops your meditation dead in the tracks. At least with pain, you can learn to observe the pain, relax around it, and build up a tolerance to it, so it doesn't disturb you so much later on. And you can also examine your thoughts, sensual desire, ill will, and restlessness, and get some insights in them. But with sleepiness, it's very difficult to deal with that one, except for straightening up the posture and so on. So anyway, so fear fits in, could be, it depends on the context. The fear, it could be the fear of, a lot of different things, but it could be, worry, like worry is one of the hindrances, restlessness and worry. So it could be the fear that comes to you of getting caught, maybe for having broken one of the precepts, right? There's could be fear of somebody finding out that you did something you shouldn't have done, or you're worrying about that. So, worrying. So worry is connected with fear. One of the causes of worry can be fear. And it can also be, coming from, the fear of having to give up too many things. If you get too much into meditation, a lot of people have fear that they're going to have to give up their friends or give up this or that. When you hear about the Buddha says, you have to overcome all desires, and people have a little bit of fear. I don't want to give up this and that. So anyway, so you have to examine when fear arises. You have to see, try to understand what is, if it's connected with something specific. Sometimes it's the fear of when people get close to a deep meditation, the fear of the ego dissolving. They get afraid. Oh, am I going to be able to come back to reality? Or they get afraid something's going to happen to them if they meditate too much, and or they're going to go mad or something. And because there's a lot of misconceptions about it. About meditation by some other types of religious groups and so on. So or losing what you may have. So desire can also be a cause of fear and so. Okay. So now let's see if there's any questions that have been put up in the chat box. Okay, so Prashant has put up the link to this book. It's really a very useful book. recommend that people put that somewhere where they don't lose it. Put it on one of your favorites or something, so you don't lose it. It's easy to get a hold of. Okay. Okay, this question says 5 hindrances prevent concentration. Is there anything that obstructs, hinders acquiring wisdom? There's a saying, without concentration, there's no wisdom, indicating that not having concentration is a hindrance to wisdom. And without wisdom, there's no concentration. You forgot the second part, very important. So there's no wisdom without concentration, and no concentration without wisdom. The meaning of that is this first level of wisdom. So you have to understand this, the 3 levels of wisdom. A lot of people overlook that. Without intellectual understanding, you're not going to practice meditation, because without understanding the nature of suffering, who's going to want to meditate? So basically, it's that the intellectual understanding about the Dhamma is what pricks your interest to want to start, meditating. But without mindfulness, there's not going to be any concentration either, because the hindrance will come up. And if you're not mindful of the hindrances, you're not going to gain concentration. Is there anything that obstructs, hinders wisdom? Yes, it's not having mindfulness and concentration. Especially the 2 levels, so reflective wisdom and the deeper wisdom coming out of the direct intuitive wisdom, are often called the bhavanamaya panya, the direct deep insights into impermanence, suffering, and no self. Those are sort of these kind of aha moments when in the meditation you kind of get a momentary glimpse, or something comes to you that, wow, that's what that is. Wow, I finally saw that. So those are very important. But that comes through your continued practice of meditation. You'll continue to get many, many insights come, and they accumulate. And sometimes you might forget them, but they're there in the unconscious mind, and gradually they accumulate to become more frequent and get deeper and deeper too. So there's no concentration without wisdom. That means the deeper levels of wisdom. So you can get intellectual wisdom without too much concentration, right? You can read a book, you can hear this Dhamma talk, and maybe you might at least remember a couple words of it, and it might, inspire you to want to practice. So, but then to get the deeper levels, you can get reflective wisdom through just practicing mindfulness. But to get that deeper meditative levels of wisdom, you need the concentration. And that's why there's no wisdom without concentration. The intellectual wisdom, or the deeper level of wisdom, and there's no concentration without wisdom. That means you're not going to start to meditate if there isn't at least some intellectual wisdom and some motivation to want to start practicing. Okay. Says Bhante, did you mean altered states of consciousness? these altered states of mental states. As I understand, consciousness is a constant factor facilitating cognition. Well, consciousness is the knowing faculty, but it gets affected by, states of concentration, like the jhanas, right? So the jhanas are altered states of consciousness. They're mental states, but you're developing these mental states and they affect the consciousness. So it's an altered state of consciousness as well, but normally we say it's due to the concentration. So it's difficult to separate consciousness from the mental states. Only in the very highest levels, the state of an arahant actually is probably the only time you're going to have pure consciousness without the various mental factors. But even then you have some very subtle ones. Anyway, it's a deep subject. But normally, back in the, the 60s and 70s, they talked about the altered states of consciousness because the consciousness is colored by the mental contents. That's why even in the Abhidhamma, there's 121 states of consciousness because they are colored by the types of mental factors, the three roots of greed, hatred, and delusion, and their different combinations and intensities. Then, even in the contemplation of the Chittanupasana, there's a mind with greed, a mind with hatred, a mind with delusion, an exalted state of mind. So we can say the consciousness has been modified by those mental contents. But it's true, the pure awareness, I wouldn't say consciousness, but pure awareness then is freed from those contaminants of the mental factors. But I usually draw a distinction between consciousness and, let's say, pure awareness. And again, these are English translations of Pali terms that are not easy to understand. So, okay, that's all of the, looks like that's all of the written chats there. Now, based on any of that that we've been discussing, we could open it up if anybody has a question that they would like to ask by raising their hand, or not raising their hand, use this little yellow hand on the reactions button. I just discovered that a few weeks ago, actually. If you want to ask a question, you can do that reaction. Somebody, I see a yellow hand, but there's something,
Yes, Bhante, I raised it.
there's something writing in front of it, so I don't know who that person is. Is that Prashant?
Yes, Bhante. Bhante, 5 hindrances are also part of 4 foundation of mindfulness, and they put it on all the way on the top, like it's part of Dhammanutpasana. And over here we see that it's very, very critical to overcome this 5 hindrances, even to get some basic concentration. So, can you elaborate on that?
Well, okay, the 4 foundations of mindfulness is, in the sutra, it starts with mindfulness of the breathing and the body. And then once you get centered and grounded and have developed at least some initial mindfulness and an initial a weak level of meditation, at least, or some level, you can start observing the feelings, the painful and pleasant feelings, because these also become hindrances. If we get attached to and drawn away into our pleasurable feelings, or getting irritated by the painful feelings, that's going to also be a hindrance. And prevent the concentration. So you learn to detach yourself from reacting to these painful and pleasant sensations. And then you get more concentrated, and then you can see that our mental states are triggered off by the sensations. Most of our mental states, that means our thoughts and mental reactions, are triggered off by the painful and pleasant reactions to any of those six senses. And so our mindfulness helps to observe those. And so while you're doing that, you're practicing mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of the mind states. You're gaining concentration, and you're, weakening the hindrances. And then the contemplation of Dhamma, or contemplation of the mental states, the fourth foundation of mindfulness. Yeah, the first group is the five hindrances. It doesn't mean you have to wait until you practicing Dhammanupassana to be aware of the five hindrances. But at least now your concentration and awareness is sufficiently detached from them, has weakened them to some extent that you're not totally lost into them. So you can much more clearly contemplate them with some level of detachment and see their power more clearly. And as you're doing that, then your concentration even then increases to, it could even increase to, momentary concentration, access concentration. Anyway, it gets stronger. And then you can contemplate the five aggregates and the five senses. It's only when we develop some degree of detachment from reacting to things that we can contemplate them in an effective way. It's like a scientist looking through the microscope and trying to observe how cells, molecules, atoms, and so on, how they interact and affect each other, how certain drugs and other things are affecting. Only when that microscope is turned up, you can see that clearly. So turning up the microscope is affected by increasing your mindfulness and concentration, is helping to turn up the power of the microscope more and more, so that you have more and more clarity in seeing how the cause and effect relationship between the senses and our thoughts, and how our mind is deeply entwined tied up in the senses and in karma. We can observe that because of this detached awareness that has been cultivated through that initial development of mindfulness and concentration. But then it starts getting into higher gear as we start developing that deeper level of wisdom. That concentration and mindfulness keeps on getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And then we can have that detachment to the five aggregates, six senses, and that's when the enlightenment factors start getting developed. That's why they don't become enlightenment factors until you develop that to that degree of detached awareness, and where that concentration is getting stronger, and the mindfulness becomes an enlightenment factor of mindfulness. Ordinary mindfulness is not an enlightenment factor of mindfulness. It's only when that mindfulness has been supported and boosted by concentration, then it becomes a factor of enlightenment. And the same with the other factors of enlightenment too. And then the sixth factor of enlightenment is the concentration, which means the jhana, at least the first jhana, or any one of first through the fourth jhana. And then the equanimity that comes out of the third and the fourth jhana. Actually, the equanimity arises with the third and fourth jhana. So the enlightenment factor means having gained at least a third or fourth jhana. You're doing your meditation developing the first and second even while you're meditating. And that's a misconception and a point of controversy over some people who say, well, you can't practice mindfulness when you're concentrated. That's not true. If we read the Buddhist teaching, it's not true. He never said come out of the jhana and then practice mindfulness. In fact, the fourth jhana is the purified mindfulness, and equanimity is the fourth jhana. It's purified mindfulness. So you're having mindfulness. Mindfulness is there in all of those jhanas. So anyway, I know there's points of controversy about that, but I'm not going to go into that, now. So anyway, so that's sort of that. Will that answer your question, Prashant? I don't know.
The point is that, first we try to, as we understand hindrances, we try to eliminate. So go through our deepening of concentration, but then hindrances become more clearer to us, and we can see them more clearly how they are affecting us. So we eliminate them to move further deeper into the concentration. So that's the path. So that's how hindrances.
Yes, there's so many different degrees of levels of hindrances and fetters, and of course these mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom, and they all get gradually stronger and deeper as you continue to do the proper practice and integrate the Noble Eightfold Path.
I know that you talk about this minute of mindfulness, but as you mentioned, if you want to develop the better practice, we should not just be practicing on the cushion, but we should be practicing throughout the day.
Absolutely, yeah. But if you can't be mindful when you're sitting, it's probably not going to be easy to be mindful in the midst of things that are going around you in your daily life. That's why, the sitting practice helps to cultivate that. But the sitting practice helps you then. That's where we need our mindfulnesses in the daily life. But if you just start trying to practice it without practicing any meditation, it's going to be much more difficult. So at least you sit down and be mindfulness of your body and mindfulness of the feelings, and get some ability to notice them. Then when your daily life and you're having an argument with your colleague or something, you notice yourself getting angry. This hindrance of aversion is arising in me. You could catch yourself more quickly, or something like that. Or you get sense desire arising in your mind. You look at some person maybe and some desire arise. Oh, you quickly identify this as a sense desire, and then try to apply the appropriate antidote. So, the daily life is where we create most of our karma. So that's really where we need the mindfulness. But so the mindfulness is important in the daily life, but when you're sitting in meditation is where you can develop deeper levels of concentration and then get deeper insights into them. But that in turn helps us to be more mindful in our daily life and to be able to apply our right understanding and right efforts.
And Bhante, then also many people maintaining a general awareness, whatever you're doing, I can be gently aware also simultaneously. So it's like awareness. So it's is that mindfulness and awareness this can be exchanged synonymously with each other?
Yeah, to a certain extent. Yeah, being aware and being mindful. There's, you could say, there wouldn't be mindfulness without awareness, and there wouldn't be awareness probably without mindfulness, because awareness assumes a kind of a detached observation. So you're aware of something without getting caught up and lost into it. So awareness is more like a larger mental space in which things are coming and going, but the reactive process has been weakened. And so things can kind of come and go and you're aware of them, but you're not getting trapped and carried away by them. Then it becomes ego consciousness, ego-bound subject-object consciousness. That's the way that I prefer to try to describe that. Okay, friends, so I think there's one more chat, but okay, there's one other question here. These meditation techniques are helpful for a person with reasonably good mental conditions. How can these be used to help a person diagnosed with depression and anxiety? Well, people may not like to hear this, but the Buddha said, this Dhamma is for the wise, not for people that are unwise. And so, not everyone is going to be able to get the benefit of the Dhamma necessarily. But of course, meditation techniques can help people diagnosed with depression and anxiety, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't continue to maybe take their antidepressants to a certain extent until they can gain the ability to effectively detach themselves from these very heavy, dark states of depression or anxiety. But you have to start where you are. So, anybody can start and try, even with some very simple meditation techniques. And, Prashant mentioned the M&M, and that's a good practice you can do in a daily life, is to pause every hour and just come back to the body and breathing, take a few deep breaths, and try to let go of any negativity you might have been hanging on to in that previous hour, or to send out metta, or to try to let go of any anxieties just by, pausing and coming back to the body, taking a few deep, slow breaths. So that's also a good kind of technique to try to do during the day.
Okay, Veronica has a question.
Okay, I wanted to ask, can one say that the hindrances are conditioned?
There's something that's, some words are blocking out your faces there. How do I get rid of that? It says, do that X. Okay, there we go. Okay.
Bhante, we can't hear very well also the questions.
Right.
Close. My question is, can we say that the hindrances are conditioned, dependently arising, and impermanent? For example, you gave the example of ill will. So if, for example, I haven't slept well, I'm tired, and so I'm the will in my mind. But if I have a really good day and I'm feeling well, then I'll be more inclined to cut the person some slack, as you say. So if these hindrances are coming, going, they're impermanent, how do we know for sure when they are gone from the mind? For example, sensual pleasure or ill will. Doubt is more easy, I guess, to gauge, but it's maybe more subtle, coming and going. How do you know you got rid of them for sure?
The hindrances, as you mentioned, they come and go depending on conditions, but we have the fetters that are lying deep in the unconscious mind. So hindrances arise just moment to moment during our active daily life, but they have their roots in the fetters that are deeper in the mind, that can only be uprooted through attaining the four paths and fruits of the, entering the stream and so on. So they're not permanently, you won't permanently overcome the hindrances, and especially of sense, desire, and ill will, until you've reached the state of an anagami, actually, which is, a pretty high level of liberation. So dealing with the hindrances on a day-to-day basis, we just deflect them for a while, and they you might be able to, let them go in your meditation for a while and gain some concentration. But then because the fetter is still there, they can come back, depending on the causes and conditions of your immediate environment. They could trigger off. These fetters could come up and manifest as one of these hindrances. But they come and go dependent on conditions, as you mentioned. But the fetters, they're permanently there until we attain, they've been uprooted through attaining those stages of enlightenment.
So once you get rid of the fetters, you uproot them, then the hindrances
Yeah, you won't have hindrances once you've removed the fetters. No?
Bhante, are the words for hindrances and fetters nivaranas and asavas?
No, fetters are samyojanas.
Some, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, friends. So our time is kind of getting close to the end of the hour. So we're going to stop now so we can have a short break and do some yoga stretches and come back and observe our hindrances or to effectively deal with them. Okay, friends, so try to stand straight. So relax your shoulders and arms at the sides. Just gently close your eyes or feel the feet pressing the floor. Try to mentally feel the height and the weight of the body over the feet. Then begin some deep, slow breathing, taking a few seconds to breathe in, holding the air in the lungs 2 or 3 seconds, and slowly breathing out. Just thinking like this to yourself, taking a few more deep, slow breaths, breathing in, letting go of the past and future, and breathing out, standing here and now, and breathing in, letting go of the past and future, and breathing out, standing here and now. Now we're going to coordinate these movement exercises with that same breathing. On the next in-breath, raise the arms over the head, interlock the fingers, turn the palms up, straighten the arms, stretch your head back. Feel the sensations. The out-breath, turn the palms down, touch the top of the head. Again, in-breath, palms up, straighten the arms. Stretch up and bend back a little bit. Out-breath, touch the head. Third time. Hold that upward stretch longer, try to bend back a little more. Release the fingers, the out-breath, arms back to the sides. Close the eyes, feel your feet pressing the floor. Feel your hands and fingers, maybe some increased pulsation, tingling sensation in your hands or fingers. Just remind yourself of standing, standing. It's mindfulness, knowing that you're standing. This body is standing. Okay, next on an in-breath, you're going to push up on the toes and raise the arms over the head in this way, facing the hands toward each other and stretch up. Out breath, come back down, arms to the side, feet to the floor. Use the in-breath to help lift up the body, in-breath. Stretch. Out. In. Out. Relax. Just close the eyes. Feel the feet pressing the floor. The arms and hands at the side. Feel the clothing touching the skin in different places. Feel the head balanced on top. If you can notice those things, that's awareness. Just remember standing, standing. Mindfulness of standing or awareness of standing, basically the same thing. Just letting go of your thoughts. Let the thoughts come and go in the back of the mind. The standing body in the front of the awareness. And next we'll do side bending using both arms. So on in-breath, raise both arms and keep the hands and fingers, the arms and fingers straight close to the head. On the out-breath, bend over the right side as far as you comfortably can. Feel the stretch in the side. In-breath, lift up. And then the other side, out-breath. And keep the arms parallel to each other like railroad tracks. In-breath, lift up. Again to the right, out-breath. In. Out. In. Once more to each side, out breath. On the out breath, lower the arms. Relax. Feel that increased pulsation or tingling sensation in your hands and fingers. Your clothing touching the body. All those different sensations. can feel many different sensations kind of all at once. That's awareness. You get focused on only one, that's consciousness. Okay, now spread the feet apart about 3 feet. Holding the arms out, twisting from right to left. Breathe in. On the out breath, twist to the right. Keep the eyes focused on the hand going back. In breath back to the front. Let the feet turn with the body and then go to the other side, the next out breath. In breath, front. Just keep alternating sides like that with the breathing, out breath. In the other side, out. In. Once more to each side. Lower the arms, relax. Feel each foot pressing the floor. Feel that sensation of the legs spread apart. Clothing touching the skin of the legs. Feel the hands touching the side. Clothing touching the skin of the shoulders, arms, chest. Head balanced on top. So feel the eyes and the socket. Remember standing. Now the last exercise, forward and backward bending. Just be careful with the back bends, don't bend back too far the first time. Especially be aware when you lift up out of the back bend, lift up straight, there could be some body shaking or feeling faint. And touch the front of the legs with the hands. Breathe in. On the out breath, bend forward. Let the hands slide down to the knees the first time, but keep the head up, looking out straight ahead. Keep the legs straight, try to flatten the spine like a tabletop. In breath, lift up. Move the hands under the buttocks for support. Let the head go back. The out breath, gently bend backwards. Keep the eyes open, not too far the first time. In breath, carefully lift up. In the out breath, second time, let the hands come down below the knees. Still keep the legs straight, the head up. Feel a stretch in the back of the leg. In breath, lift up. Again, the back bend, try to bend back a little more if possible. In breath up. And the third time, let the hands come down as far as you can towards the feet. And hold on to your legs or feet. Feel the stretch in the back of the legs. Feel all the other sensations. The in-breath, lifting up. Once more, the back bends. Be careful as you bend back. In-breath, lift up. And the out-breath is relax. Feel all those life force vibrations. Feeling the body exactly as it is. The present moment awareness. The mind is in the present moment, that's awareness. When it's lost in the past or future, that's consciousness, ego consciousness. Okay, now bring the legs and feet closer together. Again, just mentally feel the body. Now, friends, try to sit straight. Just keep the spine and the back of the head in a straight line. As I mentioned, meditation happens between the brain and the spinal column, keeping those energy channels open and straight allows for optimal alertness, awareness, to minimize the hindrance of drowsiness. So just gently close the eyes. And first of all, just feel the weight of the body pressing the floor. Just feel where the buttocks and feet press the floor underneath. Just mentally feel how the knees are bent and the legs tucked underneath. Just mentally remind yourself of sitting. Now the body is sitting. Feel the hands and fingers touching together where they touch your leg. The ability to feel these different parts is awareness, mindfulness. Feel the weight of the arms hanging from the shoulders. Feel where the clothing touches the skin of the shoulders, arms, or chest. Ability to kind of just scan that area of the shoulders, arms, and chest as a faculty of awareness. concentrated awareness. Now feel the head balanced on top. Again, try to keep the chin lifted up level or parallel to the floor. Just notice how when the head is really in a straight line, the chin lifted up, the mind is more bright. Just feel some sensations on your face. Prickly sensations. Feel where the lips touch together. Try to feel the tongue inside the mouth, where the tongue may touch your teeth. Ability to notice those sensations is awareness. Present moment awareness, as well as being concentrated. Both concentration and awareness are both together. Now feel the eyes in the socket. Feel the eyelids stretched over the eyeball. Try to feel those subtle eye movements. You might see some light or color in the eyes. From that point behind the eyes, just let the awareness kind of open up to feel the outline of the whole sitting body, the head on top, shoulders and arms, hands, legs and feet underneath. It's not in any detail, not concentrating on them, just awareness, focused awareness, concentrated awareness. And just be aware of sitting. That's the mindfulness, knowing what is occurring, what the body is doing. That's the mindfulness. And then begin taking some deep, slow breaths. Become mindful of the breathing. Let's try to take several deep, slow breaths like we did in the yoga exercise. Feel that dynamic expanding and contracting of the abdomen, rib cage, and upper chest. It helps oxygenate the bloodstream. Just thinking along these lines to yourself, cultivating this mindfulness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now we're going to count the breaths from 1 to 10, try to develop a more continuous concentration and awareness of the breathing. Continue to take some deeper breaths if you can. With the next expanding in breath, mentally count 1. Hold the breath in for 1 or 2 seconds. And with the contracting out breath, also count 1. Feel the last bit of air go out of the lung. Next in breath, 2. Out breath, 2. In breath, 3. Out breath, 3. In breath, 4. Out breath, 4. In 5. Out 5. In 6. Out 6. In 7. Out 7. In 8. Out 8. In 9. Out 9. In 10. Out 10. Now discontinue the counting. Let the breathing return to its uncontrolled, shorter, irregular rhythm. But continue to feel it, to be mindful of the breathing. Just knowing when the breath is coming in and knowing when the breath is going out. The knowing is that alertness. The mindfulness knows it's an in-breath. The mindfulness knows it's an out-breath. It's the clear comprehension. Mindfulness is always accompanied with clear comprehension. Make these brief mental notes to help remember, be mindful, breathing in, sitting, breathing out, sitting, over and over and over again, the present moment of the body, breathing in, sitting, breathing out, sitting, breath by breath, moment by moment. Neither to focus where the breathing, the air is going through the nostrils, or really keep your attention focused on the sensations of the clothing touching the skin, on the abdomen or stomach, rib cage, or chest as it expands and contracts. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. It's turning up the power of the mental microscope. Try to be aware of those 4 phases of each breath cycle. The incoming breath and the pause. The outgoing breath and the pause. The pause may only be a fraction of a second. That's okay, but to notice that is good mindfulness. It's alert mindfulness. You can't notice it, that means your mind has wandered or your mind is dull. Breathing in the pause, breathing out, brief pause. At the same time, be alert when any hindrances arise. Try to identify the hindrance if you can. Ability to notice the hindrance, let go of it. Keep coming back to the breathing body. It's how you develop your concentration. You have to be mindful of the hindrance. This is sleepiness, this is restlessness, this is sense desire, that is aversion, this is doubts. Be aware of pains that are pulling the mind. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Breath by breath, moment by moment. Balancing, integrating mindfulness and concentration. Concentration is the ability to remember sitting and breathing. Mindfulness is that alertness for hindrances, trying to pull you away. If you catch yourself totally lost in thoughts, recognize it as lost, lost. Take a deep, slow breath. Bring the mind back into the body, back to in, sitting, out, out, sitting. This breathing body is the mind's natural connection to the present moment. We lose that connection to the breathing body, the present moment. The mind gets easily lost in the hindrances. caught up in doubts, worry, aversions, greed, goes to sleep. This breathing body is the lifeline, the life preserver to the present moment awareness. Try to feel more and more sensation in this breathing body. Even while observing the breathing, notice other sensations coming and going, in, around, or through that breathing awareness. Just try to notice more and subtler details of the breathing process. Sometimes the breaths are longer and sometimes shorter. Pauses between the breaths be longer or shorter. Part of mindfulness of breathing. To feel like a scientist sitting in the laboratory looking down through the microscope. This breathing body is the laboratory for the meditator. The microscope is a concentrated awareness. Between the breaths, keep checking the posture. The chin is drooping downwards, lifted back up, level to the floor. The spine is sagging, straighten up the back and spine. There's too many thoughts. You can do some deep, slow breathing to help stay concentrated. Keep the oxygen charged up with oxygen, the bloodstream charged up with oxygen. Be alert to the flow of impermanence through the body and mind, different sensations coming and going, sounds coming and going, thoughts coming and going. Through that space of body-centered awareness. what kind of perceptions or thoughts arise based on that sound vibration. Nati janam apanyasa anya nati ajaitu yam hi jananja panyasa siri nibbana santiki. Dukkha pata ca nidukkha bhayapata ca nibbaya sokka pata ca nisoka hontu sabbe pipaninu. There's no concentration without wisdom, no wisdom without concentration. One who is both concentrated and is wise is close to peace and freedom. And may the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. In this way may all beings live with mindfulness and wisdom. And thus spoke the Buddha. Now, for those who like, can join in chanting the word sadhu 3 times slowly. We do that chanting on a long out breath. Feel those vibrations in the body and mind, drawing out those syllables. Take a deep breath. Now place your hands at the edge of the knees. Take one more deep breath. As you breathe in, stretch the head back. Pull against the knees to arch your spine backward. Hold it a few moments. Lift the head up on an in-breath, and on the out-breath, press the chin to the top of the chest. Stretch the neck vertebrae. Lift the chin up level on an in-breath. Relax on the out-breath. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends, this brings our evening Dhamma discussion and practice to an end. But,
I like my smell. Thank you, Bhante. Yeah.
you like your smell?
Smell. This
Oh,
is
the
my
smile.
idea. Yeah, when you said to smell, I loved that. I'm still smiling.
Yeah, smiling is, there's a scientific effect of that. When you smile and the muscles get pulled up like that, it does something to your brain.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Anyway, I wish you all the best. Try to keep up your meditation practice this week. Be mindful of the hindrances in your daily life, and when you're meditating, be mindful when they arise, to be able to let go of them and keep coming back to the main object of awareness, which is the breathing and body, and see how that progresses. Okay?
Yeah.
Namo Buddhaya Bhante.
Namo Buddhaya.
Thank you, Bhante.
Mindfulness
Thank you, Bhante.
dukkha away.